Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Sarah Hughes, and I head up Kandy's customer experience and channel marketing here. Today, the topic of this technical fireside chat is best practices in deploying ancillary devices with Kandy UC. We're also going to talk about announcing our Kandy Channel Partner Program. Also with me is Jason Whitaker, one of our device experts, and we also have our beloved Dave Fowler, support and operations expert. What we're going to cover today, again, as we always do, we make this available to you afterwards in the replay. So you'll get a copy of the slides, but you'll also get a replay so that you can share this with other people. So the topics today is focusing around the ancillary devices. And if just a little housekeeping too, please within the chat, post your questions. Our team is here and will interrupt as we go through to answer any questions as they come up. So please use your chat in the bottom of the screen there. So what we're going to start off with is, what do we consider ancillary? It's a kind of a formal word for what we're talking about, devices, and how do we connect analog devices into the Kandy provisioning and implementation? Uh, how do we connect a SIP-enabled device to connect up these? And we'll also talk about the supported analog gateways, any new devices that we've added recently, maybe you haven't been aware of. And then we'll also go over something that I think that is really, really important, and it's our generic device provisioning. There's lots of uses for that, and we'll have Jason Whitaker go through that. We'll also talk about some additional fields when you're creating customers, how to provision those devices, but also how to connect them to subscribers. And then Dave Fowler will talk about some advanced tools for support and implementation that would help you in deploying these, including some commonly reported support issues and how you can work around those or resolve those yourselves. And finally, we'll talk about any related documentation that can help you and where to find that. And then at the end, if you'll stay with us, it won't take very long, but we'll talk about Kandy's new channel partner program. Of course, throughout this, we'll have question and answer. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and kick the party off with, what do we consider ancillary devices? And ancillary usually means beside other things. And most people connect SIP telephones or the soft clients as registered users. But don't forget that there's a lot of devices out there that aren't SIP telephones that can connect up analog devices. Some of these can be straight up analog and you can convert them to SIP, or they can be SIP enabled. And some examples are a traditional fax machine. These are typically analog. Some of the newer models are SIP enabled or VoIP enabled. Your credit card machines, if you're into that point of sale type of thing. Alarm panels could also be elevators. Sometimes up to code, they don't want those to be VoIP lines. They want them to be standard analog connections. And of course, paging systems. Now, we've talked about this a little bit in previous webinars, specifically around parking and paging with Kandy, but we're going to drill down on provisioning those in more detail. So when we connect up an analog device to Kandy, Kandy only speaks SIP, and so it needs to have something that will convert that to SIP. And the only way to do that is to use either, you might consider it an analog gateway, some people may call it an integrated access device or something like that. But you do have to connect that device up because it only speaks analog signaling. And then this device, there's several different types, and we'll go through some of those, that will convert that signaling, the analog signaling to SIP, and register up to Kandy. So there will need to be a subscriber. We do have some best practices around that. That subscriber that you create should not be with a very expensive license with lots of feature functionality. Just a very voice essentials, a basic voice user there's no voicemail that's needed, and you should consider if it's never going to be dialed directly, that maybe you use a non-DID number, just an internal dummy number. But you also have to create this analog gateway Mac as a generic device, which we're going to talk about, so that that firmware can be configured and managed by Kandy. And then you'll assign this device to that subscriber that's created. So we'll go through the details with that. Now, if it's a SIP-enabled device, so it's not analog signaling, it does have SIP-enabled, you're going to pay a little more for that. And so you definitely have to create it as a device similar to what you would with a phone. And then as a generic device, again, the firmware managed by us, and you still need that subscriber created in the system. And again, consider the best practices, a very basic user, no voicemail, maybe a non-DID number. Again, paging especially, you don't want people calling that from the outside world. So a non-DID number is probably the best way to go here. And again, it will use the SIP protocol to connect up and register to us. So SIP paging devices, here is an example of the algo paging um, box, if you will. Those, again, the analog devices, if it's SIP enabled, you're going to go in and add that generic device. We have a document called the Gateway Configuration Doc that'll help you through that. And you're going to input that Mac as a generic device. And then you'll go in and create that Voice Essentials or Voice Basic user again and assign that. So very common names of those would be Valcom, Viking, Bogan, Algo on that. A lot of those are generic. We don't test them each and every time. The Algo we have been, but again, they're pretty basic. Some of the paging do support multicast, and the SIP telephones, the Yealink and the Polycom. I know, I believe Cisco and some others also support multicast paging, but those can be used in conjunction with this as long as they're using the same multicast IPs and configuration there. And of course, then that in order to utilize this, that person would dial that non-DID or alias extension and speak across the paging system. So it's how that particularly works. Similarly, if you want to use a credit card machine, you walk up to it and use it, it makes a call. It's making a non-DID call to that. So we publish each and every quarter a list of supported devices, and here's a snapshot of them. But you can see over on the right-hand side, I've listed out, Edgemark, Cisco, Adtran, Grandstream, AudioCodes, Mediatrix, whatever you want to call it. But we've been adding some additional ones recently, additional Grandstream, the Algo, as well as Poly Obi or OBI, however you want to say that. Those are several that we've recently added to be able to connect up and convert those analog devices to SIP. And we have several others in the pipeline that are soon to come. Then finally, we also have, again, here's some pictures of some of the algo solutions that came in and were supported in the 51.2 release. And some of those are intercom systems, speakers, visual alerters, paging adapters. So do take a look at that. And again, this has recently been certified by Kandy and Jason Whitaker himself and his team supporting that. So I'm going to hand it over now to Jason to really talk about the generic device provisioning, what it is, how it's used. So I'll hand it off to you. If you want to turn your video on, Jason. You're muted. All right, so while we're waiting on him to come back to us there, um, you can upload configuration profiles for unmanaged devices. And um, unmanaged devices, we usually speak in terms of managed or unmanaged there. The managed devices are ones that we go in, manage the the firmware, the configuration files and such. And um, with that, one of the great benefits here is that, we do that for the phones, but for generic devices, and this could be a phone that we've not certified yet. This could be one of these analog devices, either one. And so you can manage the firmware, the configuration files, all through the admin portal. So I think that's one of the great benefits there. Jason, just jump in if you're able to. uh, Looks like you're still muted on your end there. And one of the things that you would do is you need to go in and create a template, first of all, in that. And you've got to enable generic device provisioning. It's done at the partner level, but you go in and create a template. You will set up a vendor in that and a model, and then you can go in and add, once those are set up, then you can add that device like you do in device management. Add the MAC address and select that device as a generic device. And then those things can be, once you add that device, then you can associate it to a subscriber. You're back with us, Jason. Can you hear me? All right. And then I think we're having a little technical difficulties here. Bear with us. All right. So one of the big things is that that generic device needs to support HTTPS, so that's security in there. Not all of those devices that are on the market today support HTTPS. That's usually an additional security measure. And use plain text or XML-based configuration files. And it has to be in a certain format. So the MAC address, dot, and a config at the end of that. Dave, are you able to hear and speak as well?
Hey, Sarah, Jason's PC crashed. He's getting it back up.
Okay, thank you. All right. And then finally, in order to pick up this is the local DHCP. So the devices themselves by default out of the box do go and look for a DHCP server that will give them an IP address. And they can also be set to push down and where they go to get their configuration files. And so that's how you use, because these devices, unlike Poly and Yealink and Cisco and others, when those immediately connect up, they basically go back to the vendor. I call it ET Phone Home, and go back to the vendor, and then the vendor says, oh, I have this zero touch provisioning service, and it looks at that first. Well, these devices don't do that. And so the DHCP server that's providing the IP addresses, the scope will have to be updated saying the call IP server for these is Kandy. And so that will need to be loaded in. And then they'll get these configuration files that are uploaded in the template that's provided. So, and then finally, the big thing about this is it does give you the ability to assign templates, push firmware, manage it instead of manually managing it, each one individually. Can you imagine if you had just 3 of these deployed, maybe you could do that manually, but if you had 100 or 150, all different firmware, different configuration files, it would, or more, it would be a management nightmare. So, Jason, just let me know when you get back in here.
I think I'm back. Can you hear me
You
okay?
are, yes, yes. Would you
Okay.
Yeah, I'll
We'll
go
see
ahead
how
and
long it
I've
lasts.
sorry. I kind of tried to go through as much of this as possible, but I think you could do it better justice than I did.
Oh no, you're fine. I was able to hear some of what you were saying. Sorry about that, everyone. Hopefully this will stay good for now. So just to pick up a little bit where Sarah left off, the generic device provisioning, it's a good tool that I don't think is utilized as much as maybe it could or should be. Primary things you have to make sure of is if your device will support HTTPS provisioning, uses a plain text or XML-based configuration file in a mac.cfg format, then you should be good to go. I think you covered off everything else on the rest of this. I do want to make sure I point out the firmware is a push, so you define a path, but we do not within the Kandy portal house the firmware. So you would need a location that you would provide a path and then the availability for those devices to reach to get that configuration.
So you would need to host a
Yes.
server somewhere with those. Okay. And
Yeah, and
that
I'm going to keep my camera
HTTPS would
off,
point you.
Sarah, just to
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
limit my utilization on my end.
Certainly. Okay. All right. So let's go to the next one.
Okay, this is the start of the provisioning. It's set up on your organization to be able to allow generic device key management and or generic device management here. And Sarah's got it shown there. So you want to make sure that would need to be enabled, and then you can configure it, continue configuring it.
Yeah, and those can be edited after the fact too, right? There's some things that, like portal branding, if you've disabled it, you can't go back in after the fact, but these can be enabled. So if you're not seeing it in admin, this is why.
All right, and then the steps to configure, there's actually a couple more steps we're going to continue on, but the first step is you go in and you add a vendor, and this is done at the partner level. So the partner level would go in and set up any vendor's names, and this is just names. You have some like Cisco, Snome, Audio Codes. We used to have Audio Codes in there until they became a certified vendor. Allgo, whatever you wanted to add. And then once that's added, you can go in under the SMB and start configuring a template. Now, the template is the guts of this thing. That is basically the configuration file. And within that, there are a set of variables you can configure for things like the proxy, the username, and password. So these will allow you to assign this template to multiple subscribers or multiple devices, and it will automatically pull that data in.
And some of those things, aren't most of the analog to gateway devices, aren't they pretty basic? I mean, if you were to look at a config file on a Poly or Yealink or Cisco, those are pretty lengthy, but aren't the ones that are analog gateways pretty simple in comparison?
Exactly, or they usually should be. I mean, it's just a username, a password, a proxy, uh, a domain, and that's about it for the most part.
Great. Yeah, and you would put that, you would name it, you would describe it, and then that in the template part, those are and they vary by vendor what their format is, but it's usually XML type of stuff, right?
Yeah, it can be XML or plain text. It just varies, as you said, by vendor, and it depends on. But the easiest way I always tell people to do this is I configure one manually, and then I export that, and then I take the pieces I need out of that exported working configuration, and create myself a template out of it. That's usually how I do it.
Great. And you can remove templates. What is the regenerate token? What does that do?
We're going to talk about that. That's
Okay,
the provisioning URL, but we'll get to that. It's one you don't want to use often.
okay, got it.
Um, and then the next step is to configure a model. I got that one a little blurry on the blow up, but anyway, after the template is configured, just give it a model name, something that you'll recognize. This will show up when you go to add a device. So when you go to associate a Mac to it, as you would any standard device. So once this is done, then you can treat this generic device as a certified device within the portal, meaning under device provisioning, you'll be able to add it by its MAC. You would select this model name. That's what you would see. And then you associate a particular vendor and the template you've built with it. Also, here is where if you wanted to specify a firmware, you would put that version number in there, and then the path is going to be the path to wherever you have a server hosting that firmware.
And a question came up on that. Can you elaborate a little bit? I mean, are they going to need to host it in AWS, or how would they do that? Or is it just a public web server somewhere?
Well, it would need to be reachable from the device, however you did that, and whatever provisioning formats the device supported for file transfer, TFTP, hopefully not just FTP, SFTP, HTTPS, something secure maybe. I mean, although we're only talking about firmware, but still.
And then a couple of questions have come up about the interop configuration documents and templates and stuff like that. I mean, the documentation that we'll refer to, most of that in the appendices, as well as in examples, those are, we've shared those in our documentation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right.
Yeah, the Algo, we've done the entire line of that. There's some older ones. GrandStream has got an updated one I think you spoke about earlier. There's a new one coming for the Poly OBI, and then some of it's actually much older, but as we're going through, new devices are becoming available, we're updating. So here this shows, as I was talking about, once you've built out the generic device, then you can go in and assign it to a subscriber. And you simply, just like any other, you pick it. And as you can see, this is one called 8301 that I built. It's an Algo model. And just like any other, you assign it, and it's associated to that subscriber. You can then go into the standard tools and do a query and see that the device configuration is generated as you think it should be. That's a good test I always do. And that's it for adding a generic device. It's sometimes a little more difficult in practice.
Got it. Before we go to
Yeah, let's look at any questions back on that before we,
yeah.
That's what I was going to say too. Go ahead.
So one of the things that we have done, obviously added it in some of the documentation, but in the partner portal within the knowledge base, we've added some of the device parameters and stuff like that for some of the SIP phones like Poly and Yealink, but we should definitely add some of these common ones there too for people to get a hold of. Obviously in the documentation, yes, but any additional things we can add in that area.
Yes.
Great. Let's hand over to Dave Fowler to talk about some of the.
Do you want to see if there's any more questions on the
Oh,
device
yes.
before?
Yeah, what
Because I'm going to
about
drop, remember?
correct. Yeah, there's one more, Edgemark devices. So would you consider Edgemark as one of these generic devices, or would you, or is it a pull down?
Right now, we're not planning on doing either for Edgemark because it's going to be incorporated with its EdgeView management system. If you're familiar with that, they have their own entire management system. So there is potential that one day we will interface with that. But right now, the guidance would be to manage it via the EdgeView.
Got it. Yeah, that's probably a more functionality there in EdgeView.
Yeah, and I believe we are offering some white glove or concierge. I don't remember the naming convention right now, Sarah, for that.
And we do have a
as well.
documentation on configuring that too. So great. All right. So if there are any other questions for Jason, go ahead and put them in the chat, and he's going to drop here in just a minute. So Dave, we're going to hand it over to you now to talk about some of the support things.
All right. Before we talk about the tools, so let's go to the other chart, and we'll just briefly talk about the issues that we generally see with this. So these devices, from a call server perspective, are phones just like a Polycom, just like a Yealink or any other phone that you use. The challenge that usually occurs when you're adding a device, especially one that hasn't been used on the system, is that the configuration required for these phones versus any other, or these devices versus any other phones, is getting them to register in the first place. So a lot of times our partners have problems getting I'm gonna call it a phone just for simplicity, but getting the phone to register, the device to register with the system, because they're putting incorrect fields where they belong. So maybe the credentials where it's pulling that are used for authentication are including a domain when it's not supposed to, or the request URI line doesn't include the domain and it's an IP address. So that's usually the biggest challenge when adding any new device, is adjusting the fields that you data fill to send the correct information. The other part about that, and so we'll talk about tools and how that you can use our tools to maybe work through those issues, but some of the other things are, if you go in and when you build the account to put on there, you assign the account a device password. Well, the way our system works, when you assign a subscriber a device password, the only time that password is used is if we've specified a specific phone type as a provider managed client device. So we do that generally with Yay links with polycoms and I think audio codes, but generic devices like this would in general not be defined on our system as a provider managed client device, so it wouldn't use a device password. We could, if you wanted to use the device passwords with the device that you're adding, we can go in and set up a SIP profile for that device type so that we can then make it one of the devices that use the device password. But unless you request that from us, the password that you would use to log in would be the subscriber password and not a device password. So in addition, we run into problems where you've got a new device type that we've never seen on our system, and let's say that device type doesn't support certain headers that our call server is sending. There's some proprietary headers that are included on things that need to be stripped out. Well, in order to do that, we have to create a SIP profile based on the user agent that we can then use to control what headers are sent to the device or what codecs are included. So we run into problems with people that add a phone or a soft client or some type of device that it chokes on some of the headers that get sent, or it doesn't support certain codecs and fails. In those cases, what we'll have to do is on a trial basis, you make calls once you get it registered, and we can go in, create a SIP profile with that user agent header, and can remove headers that we believe might be causing the problem, or if the phone actually indicates what the problem is, we can manipulate those headers. So the problem with ancillary devices is pretty much the same problem that we'll have with any phone type that someone tries to use on our system. And mainly it's registering the first time, or two, getting it, manipulating headers being sent to it because the phone doesn't support some type of headers. You know, for example, maybe a call from a soft client to it would include video in the SDP, and the paging system doesn't support video, so it would reject the call with unsupported media. We've seen that. So we can go in and manipulate the SIP, create a SIP profile and adjust the SIP profile so that we strip out video prior to sending it on. So those are the primary things that get reported with these.
And you wouldn't think, right, about the soft client sending video, but that's a common troubleshooting thing, right? Is, hey, let me just log into my client and test a call to it, and it doesn't work.
Right, because in general, the soft clients will send video codecs by default when to negotiate, even if it's not sending video. So, okay, if you want to back up to the previous one.
Yeah.
So we've had fireside chats where we've gone through all these tools. So I'm not really going to go through them. I just want to highlight how, if it was me and I was adding a new device, how I would want to troubleshoot it. So first thing you do, obviously, is you go in and you attempt what you believe is the correct data field for it. If the phone or device won't register, you can use our SIP capture, which will not only do calls, but also do registrations, and see if you can capture a registration from that device. And then what I do is I pull that up and I pull up a valid registration of, say, my client that I know is working, and I compare the request URI, the to and the from, the authentication information in there, and I see if I can tell where the problem might lie. Like, for example, and I didn't do a screen capture here, but if you look at a registration after it gets challenged with the 407, it sends a registration with authentication, and it'll have a username in that proxy authentication field. But if your client is sending username at domain, it's going to fail. It's going to get a 403 forbidden back from our call server. But if you pulled up 2 registrations and looked, that would be something I would look for, is to see if the non-hashed out part, you can't see part of that data because it's an algorithm, it does a hash on it, but you can see the username that's being sent there. Or the request URI line which should be your domain. So mine would be kandy.io. But we'll see times where that's an IP address, like the proxy IP address versus a domain name. So you can use the line trace capture to capture registrations and compare those against valid registrations. And same thing with calls. So let's say you get it registered and you make calls to it, and the calls, the paging device won't answer. You could use the line trace the SIP capture to go look at a call to it and see if you're getting a specific error code back or SIP response code back from the phone, and then we can use that data to adjust headers or to try to determine why it's failing. So again, we've got previous fireside chats where we detail how to use these tools, but those are the primary ones that I would use for this. It is the SIP capture tool. You can always, once you have it registered, you can query the registrations to verify that the system believes it's registered as well. So that covers it for me, Sarah.
Great. And in device parameters, as you create groups, you could create a group of, fax machines or certain model, like the Poly OBI or something like that, so that if you need to make changes on those, you can do that. Okay, great. Any additional questions? Yes. From Matt, where would the headers be modified or manipulated?
That would be, we would need to create a SIP profile on our system on the call server. So the call server matches the user agent header against SIP profiles. We would need to create that SIP profile and adjust any headers. That's not something that can be done from a partner level.
Yeah, so if you have something like that you suspect, open a case, provide the background, the traces that show what's going on, and then our team will go in and create a SIP profile as needed. Okay.
Did you see the question about Edgemark?
Yes, and we did. We covered that.
Okay.
Yep. Great. All right, so don't forget, on the Kandy Partner Portal, you can go to kandy.io and you can go to Ecosystem and Kandy Partner Portal. That's where the instructions to register for that, if you haven't already done so, and you can get in and you can see our documentation, partner and end user documentation. Every single quarter, we update the supported devices, which would be showcasing what, like the Algo and the Polyobi and others. And what's nice about that is we show what features have been tested against it, as well as what firmware. So you definitely want to be on the right firmware version to take advantage of that. And then we added a document not too long ago that's device provisioning how-to. So we've been adding some how-to guides, how to add a device to the portal. And the generic device provisioning that Jason Whitaker referred to and went through earlier is included in that. So that's a recent update to it. Don't forget the gateway configuration guide. There's a terminal configuration guide which shows the other SIP devices, SIP phones that we have tested but may not be certified and have their own guide. Like Poly has their own guide, Yealink has their own guide, Audio Codes and Cisco have their own guides. But the terminal one is for SIP phones. The gateway configuration guide does go through the devices that are specifically like analog, SIP to analog gateways. And then we added a new guide in 51.2, which goes through, and Jason referred to that, the Algo paging and alerters and horns and all that configuration guide for them. And in those configuration guides, those do outline the configuration file, the specific parameters that need to be in there, and usually have sample configuration guides as in the appendices. And don't forget, within the partner portal knowledge base, there are some areas for device parameters specific and other things. So we'll include some of that. We'll update that there. All right, so thanks for hanging with us. Finally, the last thing we want to do is talk about the new channel partner program. But don't forget to monitor and register for next webinars. I'll be publishing those within the next week. Out on Kandy events. So kandy.io/events, or you can go to company and events on our website, and you can see those, including the past webinars. So that's very handy as well. All right, so the Channel Partner Program, previously, many of you who were with us when we were still part of Ribbon Communications, the Ribbon Channel Partner Program did previously include Kandy. When we were divested from that group, December 2020, we're no longer part of that. So we have now implemented, and we will be communicating to you the new channel partner program for Kandy, and there are 3 partnership levels. One is silver, another is gold, and then the highest level is platinum. Now, some of the things with this, some of you may already be experiencing or utilizing, but we will be working with you individually and focusing on the platinum and gold level partners to get to first. You absolutely have access to sales tools. We're implementing a new training certification program. You'll hear about that most likely in January at our next webinar. And we also have quite a bit of new education programs. Of course, these fireside chats are education in that. The pre and post sales assistance for our partners as you are engaging in new deals and opportunities, and you need our assistance in that to review things or provide some input, as well as putting on your company face and participating in demos or meetings with your customers. We're happy to do that. We also are leveraging a lot of brand equity here between yourself and Kandy, and so utilizing us on your website, on our website, proudly displaying your channel partner classification partnership level as well. But really, in the end, we're really looking in 22 to help develop events and programs that are going to help you, our partners, connect with each other, but also provide value to your end customers by enabling you and equipping you and incentivizing. So some of the things, depending upon the partnership level, and we'll go through that, we'll be providing pre-qualified leads. So our inside sales team will be having campaigns and all lead generation campaigns to drive leads to our channel partners, and we will qualify those and hand those over to you. The customer success team, channel marketing team here at Kandy can help in both pre and post sales engagements, and there are many sales tools that we have available. We'll be making more of those available to you to help in your sales enablement in that. The partnership levels also have no charge lab and lab access and licenses for that. So we'll be making sure that you take advantage of that at your partnership level. And many education programs, again, we've added several new courses and we're rebranding those. We'll be showcasing those in our next webinar. Then for the platinum level partners, we will be utilizing marketing development funds as a percentage of your monthly recurring usage with us of the Kandy UCAS. We do have marketing as a service that you can take advantage of, and because we feel like they're best of breed services in this as well. We will be offering special promotions, and depending upon your platinum level partnership, you'll be able to take advantage of those, as well as campaign assistance, campaign management. We are starting an advisory council, which the platinum level partners will have an invitation to participate in that and provide feedback to us and insight into market needs and trends and changes. So definitely want to do that. I mentioned brand equity, but utilizing our partnership logo, but also making sure that you're highlighted as a partner on our website. So as we drive lead generation and people begin to search for partners that are offering and reselling Kandy services, we want to make sure that you're highly promoted in that. We'll be updating many of our video testimonials and adding more, and we encourage you to be open to that. And we're also doing quarterly business reviews. And so, again, looking at your business with us, things that we could do better, as well as maybe giving you insight into some ways that can help grow your business. So those are really what's in it for our channel partners. What we're asking you as channel partners to do is to maintain a certain certification level of training between our administration or your people who are provisioning, your sales teams, your implementation and support teams. And then also updating your website with the partnership level. Many of you do have areas where you have previously shown ribbon, or you mentioned that. We would love to have you update with the partnership level that you have, and make sure coordination and working with me and the customer success team to make sure that our website is updated with the right content about you, and working with us on video testimonials and attending these type of training sessions and lunch and learns. So these are the different types. Again, there's silver, there's gold, and there's platinum. And the silver level of that means that you are reselling Kandy services through one of our direct channel partners. You don't have a direct contract with Kandy, and so you fall into the silver partnership level. And with that, you can leverage the silver partnership level logo. You also have access to these webinars and others that we are showcasing in the coming years, multiple years. You do have access to our partner portal, so you can get access to sales tools and self-service branding items, as well as training and documentation in that. The administration training is online for you, and the number of required trained is 1 administration training, that is an online certification, and you can access our online sales training. If you're a gold channel partner, there is some differences between gold and platinum. You do have a direct relationship with us, and you're selling our services directly, white labeling them. And you will have a listing on our website. A platinum level partnership would have a priority position in that, and they're spending more than $10,000 US dollars a month with us. And again, between the gold and platinum, a different logo for the partnership level. The platinum level partners do get an invitation to be in the advisory council, as well as partner testimonials, highly prominent on our website. And then you do get the same benefits that the silver do have. The differences in gold and platinum within the certification program is that you're going to get 2 seats of leader-led training at no charge. The platinum level have 4 seats at no charge. And so the requirements for gold are to have 2 people in admin certified and 2 people in support certified. The platinum level partnerships need 4 people in admin certified and 4 people in the support. And the nomenclature that you see here are the new numbers for these courses. The self-paced training is the SPT, and the leader-led training is the LLT. So that is different. We're in the process of putting those scheduled dates out for you, as well as, again, our next webinar will cover these in more detail. The sales training is remote for our gold partners, as well as the platinum level partners. The sales training is leader-led, it's customized for you. And then these 2 both get no charge lab access within your domain, and so we won't charge you for those. And you do have an assigned customer success prime who has already been working with you. If you have not met them, then please email customersuccess@kandy.io, and my team is all on that, and they'll respond back and happy to set up a time to meet you. The support community and knowledge base access is also open to the gold and platinum level partnerships, as well as the assistance for any sales engagements that you may have. So do keep in mind, we're happy to review configurations for you, talk about strategy, be there to demonstrate for you, as well as take part in a meeting if you want us to. And we'll because this is a white labeled service, if you want to introduce this as Kandy, you're more than welcome to do that, or we can just be an extension of your team. For those that are both gold and platinum, we will be providing qualified leads, and there are some conditions to that as far as responsiveness on your end, so we'll be going through that. The marketing as a service items that we have, the gold is eligible for those, the platinum level, those are included. The platinum level partnerships do have higher discounts on products and services, eligible for special promotions, as well as the campaign management. So those are kind of the big differences there for you. We have updated the website as of this morning for the Kandy partnership benefits. So those are listed here, along with a brochure that you can download for more information. We also have any questions that you might have, you can reach us at channelmarketing@kandy.io. So the next steps here are that the channel marketing team here at Kandy and customer success will be reaching out to our both gold and platinum level partnerships and working with you. We do have a terms and conditions to have someone within your organization review and sign off on. And then we'll be going through and each of the items that you're eligible for and making sure that you can leverage them to your benefit. And one of the things that is a requirement on your side is to have so many certified trained people, so you're going to be getting notices of those as well. And on our website, we're going to be updating when the training courses are available and the new certification programs that do have some really cool incentives. So If we have any questions, I'm happy to field those now. Otherwise, that's the end of our webinar. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. You can also email channelmarketing@kandy.io, and I can put that in here. Customer success at kandy.io to meet your customer success assigned manager. And then channel marketing at kandy.io with any questions on the new Kandy partner program. All right. Well, thank you everybody for your time today. And if we don't talk to you before the holidays, please have a fun and safe holiday. And we'll be back in January. The next one, I believe, is January the 11th on creating customers, and we'll be reviewing the new training certification program. So thanks everyone for joining, and have a safe and happy holiday.